Like, I would be lying if I sat here and was like, no, we invented green or red.
Well, even if you go to Mexico, you hit a button that goes green or red.
That's the scariest button.
Whether you go into immigration or not, right? All right, guys. Thanks for joining us at the Elation podcast today. Today, we are here with Conway Solomon. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. We just found out we're old friends and we don't know it.
Legitimately.
Legitimately found that out. But we're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff today. But let's just talk about where you're from, where you grew up, schools you went to, all that stuff first.
Yeah. Born and raised here in New Orleans. I think like when everybody asks that question, as you know, where you go to school, you both mean high school and not high school.
Not college. Yeah.
I was at St. Martin's for 14 years, pre-K through 12th grade. One of our small connections is I was in the same grade as your sister. So we graduated from St. Martin's together.
Well, and I went to St. Martin's for summer school.
Period.
Because I had to, when I was transferring from Pius to St. Paul's.
Yep.
Pius wasn't as up
where
to
I
date.
grew up going to church.
Okay,
yep.
Right. Pius wasn't as up to date on what I guess St. Paul's was ahead of them in their curriculum. So I had to catch up. So I had to go to St. Martin for
the summer. Gotcha.
to be able to get into St. Paul's.
Yeah. So I was there for 14 years. My parents had a rule that we had to go at least 2 states away for college. That was their get out of New Orleans because they both went to UNO. So I ended up at college in San Diego, University of San Diego.
Gotcha.
Probably the prettiest campus that you could spend 4 years at.
That's awesome.
Came back home for a bit, did a startup before the one that I'm in now, before Wristband, that is no longer around, and then moved to Seattle for a little while. Kind of needed to figure out what I was going to do next.
What is Seattle?
I love it.
Really?
Yeah. It's funny. People are always like, oh, the rain must suck. And I'm like, we live in New Orleans.
It's not real rain. It's mist, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, unless it's sideways, like we can deal with rain.
I'm sorry, on a hot day, it's basically mist outside.
That's exactly,
it's hot, as heavy as the air is down here.
So I actually think it's quite nice.
Right.
I never felt the like doom and gloom of what people kind of thought was, the cloudiness of it. And then I moved back to New Orleans in 2018, which is when we started Wristband, kind of officially in that time period. So that was what ended up bringing me back home, and family's here, brothers are here, et cetera.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Your whole family's awesome. I love them all. But the dynamics of what you've been able to build with Wristband is pretty amazing. And I don't know what your startup was before. What was it before?
I was doing a technology startup still. That was definitely where my interest always was I knew it was going to be somewhere in, just starting as a kid in the tech space. It was a different angle. It was more into like e-learning and video training. So, ironically, what I always say is if I had been in that business when the pandemic hit, it probably would have been better than being in the festival business when the pandemic hit.
It's true.
So the order of those probably would have been a little bit ironically different. But, that was what kind of where I first started saying and realizing that I really liked being in, this space. But I started in production because of my brother's background being in lighting and sound and video.
Right.
That's how I really just started kind of learning about, what is this live entertainment space like? And, I think as it's a very intoxicating and addicting space.
100%. It grabbed me quick too.
Yeah.
100%. And there's a lot of gray areas in it.
Totally.
Especially in the tech world.
Totally.
There's a lot of things that could be organized better, that could be streamlined, that can be data captioned better. Like there's so many things that could just be done better on a technology side because it was kind of antiquated. Yeah, especially in the early 2000s.
Yeah, and that was really where it started, was simply just out of the need to find the right technology, to use for our own purposes.
Right.
Going back to, Essence Festival days in 2012 and 2011 and looking for, better ways to manage all of the credentials and the assets and the radios and the kind of things that come through the event. And, what I think was interesting back then, and when we kind of think about like how Wristband got started, was even back then, it felt like a tool existed for everything. You could already Google, SAS for blank, and you were going to find a whole page of results.
Right.
But every time we signed up for one and started using it, it was not what we wanted it to be or needed it to be.
Right.
And that was why it was like, okay, we did try to find something. before we built it, and we built it because we couldn't find it.
Right.
And so that was, just the very beginning, and it just led forward from there of going, how do you just keep your ear to the ground, listen to the clients, understand what they need, and not be afraid by the fact that, even in 2026 now, there are a lot of people that do what we do. We still have a very small niche because we keep our ear so close to the ground. Our customers understand it. If New Orleans is a small industry, the event world is actually pretty small nationally as well.
100%.
Yeah, much
smaller.
Less here. It's even smaller. So
agreed.
You really have to either, like do it right or kind of step out of the way, because you kind of don't have the ability to get lost in the mix.
I agree. Well, so what's crazy about our story and how it kind of links up. So I started doing events before I was in the music industry, because I was in the car business in Palm Beach. I was in the exotic car business, and we started doing car shows. And out of the group of guys, I got elected out of the group to do the entertainment side of the show. So I started booking the bands, getting the stage, handling all of that
fun
stuff. But realized I had my own distribution network, because we were having 8,000 to 10,000 people coming out to these car shows. I'm like, well, why don't I just back a band that I like and have them come to every event and sell their CDs and sell their merch and da-da-da-da. So I got way more it grabbed me. It took me, because I enjoyed selling the cars, but I wasn't really a car guy in a sense.
Sure.
The music grabbed me by a hole that I've never even experienced before in my life. It was just because it was always been a part of my life, but I didn't realize I could make money in it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
when that clicks, you're like, oh, wow.
Oh, and I'm good at it. Oh, okay. All right, cool. I'm going to do this, buy car business, But even back then, which was 2005, maybe 2004, probably up to 2012. We were talking about geofencing stages and data collection, and we were I was working on something that was not a wristband, but it was an app, and it was called AirTab, and it was supposed to handle a lot of that stuff that wristband does. As well as the data collection and just the stuff that talked that back then, what it was about. But it never turned into anything, and it's always the one that catches on and the better idea. And the wristband is such a better idea than the app.
Yeah. And what's funny is the joke at our company, which is also not a joke, is that we do need to rename the company because we actually, from a physical media perspective, we actually have moved so far beyond. It's not even just about the wristband anymore, but more about behind the scenes. How is all of that being managed? Because the consumer preferences will change, right?
Right.
Sometimes you're going to want to, we talk biometrics is everything that we're talking about right now. Everybody's asking about that. Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, you're so used to using now for anything from your airline boarding pass to your car key,
right?
To your hotel room. And then there's still those people who love the collectible of going, I want something to put on the wall. I want to hang it up.
Right.
I want to feel like VIP. So, at least give me something so I feel more special.
Right.
That plays into it as well. But what's been unique is that what's changed really at Wristband since starting with the wristbands is the recognition that all those boxes that you just said, whether it's data capture or who's going where and who's doing what, none of those are actually necessarily new in terms of these are things that these events have been wanting for years.
No, and
so we didn't make this up as these brilliant people that were like, oh my gosh, what if you did that? They're like, no duh. We've been saying this for a decade.
Absolutely.
Where I think what we did different was what I kind of said earlier was we looked around, we understood why they were still unhappy and not even why, but how are they still unhappy? How is it that something exists for everything, and yet we're still hearing about this as if, the only thing that exists is just so far off base that it's not even usable.
Right.
That was what gave us the confidence from 2012 when this idea started and we were just doing it behind the scenes to finally in 2019 go, it's been 7 years. Nothing has magically popped up.
Right.
what are we doing?
What are we doing?
Yeah,
right,
like what other signs are we waiting for?
Right.
Like, are we literally waiting for somebody to finally actually do it right, and then we're going to be like, 20 years ago, we knew we should have done that.
Yeah.
And so that was why, in 2019, we officially created Wristband as a company of its own. We separated from the event production side because it was that confidence that was like, this is a thing.
Right.
Whether it's, wristband, credential, phone, whatever. How are you as a customer? I mean, we're roughly the same age, and the number of festivals and events we've been to. How are you getting into the event? I mean, you've been to as many sporting events growing up in New Orleans and Florida as anybody probably. That it's like, I just want to get in. I just want to buy my drink.
Right.
I want to have a little fun. I want some surprise. And the sponsors, they just want to know what you're doing, where you're going.
What you're doing, how long you're spending at each tent, what you're eating, what you're drinking.
That has not changed.
No.
In 20, 30 years, that's still at the end of the day what they're all trying to do.
Right.
It's just keeping up with the Joneses of
how you're collecting the data.
Yeah.
Right.
What do people start to get? Oh, that feels too intrusive, or that feels like there's too much friction. How do you make that less friction? Or how do you adopt onto some device that now everybody's carrying around that 10 years ago, we kind of forget about it, but the iPhone didn't come out until 2007 or 2008.
Right.
So we're really only, in my opinion, like we're hardly 10 years into when it's been like, colloquially known as everybody has an iPhone.
Right.
That's not that long.
Right.
If you really, especially when you add a pandemic into the middle of that, like in the scope of things, we're really still just keeping up with going, okay, what's coming next? Obviously facial biometrics, et cetera, especially with the AI side, it's just kind of going even more through the roof. Does that mean that's where everything's going to actually, end up going? No, but it's clearly kind of never changing, or that desire to keep up is not changing. So you have to figure out how to still stay relevant, even if, again, the wristband changes.
Well, because the process of making money as a sponsor hasn't changed.
Absolutely not.
I still have to find out everything.
And the desire to make money has not either.
Correct. It's funny because back in the day, it was the same situation. So I'll tell you a story about my grandfather. So in 91, he bought a company called Keith Prowse, which was overseas. It was the original the London Queen's Theatre ticketing system.
Okay.
And it was built in like 1870 or something. Andrew Lloyd Webber was one of the partners in the situation.
Wow.
Okay. And they bought the ticketing company, and it was built it up to be the largest ticketing system outside the United States. So basically, everything that Ticketmaster didn't handle, we handled everywhere else internationally. Okay. So we were doing Wimbledon, we were doing all the soccer stadiums and stuff like that. And what they started to do was realizing that travel was starting to merge with booking all of these shows and events that you were going to. So they went and built a travel agency in Europe and then merged the ticketing company and the travel agency. And they were the first to start selling you the opera ticket when you bought the plane ticket.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So it in the same sense, it was data collection.
Yeah.
It was, let me find out what I'm going to know about everything this person does while they're there. Yeah. And it was just done in a different way, but it was the same story. That's what they were trying to do, was merge the data collection so that I can learn more about this individual and sell you on something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's a very known example, but it's no different than what Michelin did with, Michelin stars existed because they were trying to sell tires.
Right.
And now it's the most prestigious award in the world if you're in the culinary industry. Right. But, the initial drive behind it was because they wanted to get people out on the roads, they'd buy more tires, and they wanted to learn where people were going. And then all of a sudden, they become the de facto, they put your restaurant literally on the map.
Right.
They can tell you, they know who's coming, they know how, and now they're collecting on both sides of it, right? I mean, they're making fees just to get people towards your restaurant.
Yep.
They're still making their fees on their tires.
Hey, as long as the food doesn't taste like rubber, right?
Exactly right. But none of that, but that hasn't changed. You know what I mean? And even with how quickly things are, quote, changing these days, that fundamental principle is still there.
100%.
And unless you and I are missing something, I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime
No.
soon. It's going to keep developing and looking different.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is still fundamentally what we've been doing for 100 years.
100%. Well, it all comes down to advertising.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you know, it all
exactly.
comes down to advertising. Everything we do has an advertising budget and spin to it.
Yep.
You know, but well, all right. I have so many questions to ask you, but what do you think would be your favorite moment in wristband coming up? Like, what was the moment that you were like, oh man, we've got it. Like, we nailed it.
That's always hard to say because I'm so proud of the work that our team has done, that the number of events that we have that, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I would have been ecstatic to have named any one of them, that now I get to kind of, selfishly get to share as a team and kind of call our clients.
Right.
I'll tell you the one that's been the most fun for our group has just been the sporting world in general. We're one of the largest providers for the PGA Tour. We do about almost 20 of their tournaments across the country. Whether it's Farmers Insurance Open that just wrapped up last weekend. I was on the way in looking at my phone. We have there's 50,000 people right now in Phoenix at Waste Management or at WM Phoenix Open. We've done about 250,000 scans just in the last 24 hours of people coming in and out of that property. But the most special one for me was in 2022, we got the opportunity to do the US Open in Brookline, which is right out, at the country club. I mean, like, you got to be pretty old school that you don't even have a name other than the country club.
Right.
Like literally.
Right.
And I'll just never forget, that kind of opening day of like watching everybody come through. As you know, with our family, my dad's a huge golfer, grew up playing golf, still does every day. I felt in that moment just very connected and so surreal to this really is the largest, stage in the world.
Right.
You've got 100,000 people showing up, whether you like it or not, like you got to be ready. We're talking about the kind of thrill or the adrenaline that happens there. That feeling of being able to look around a crowd like that and know every single one of these people is here and used our technology, used our services. Most of them don't know, most of them don't care, and that's fine, right? Because that's part of the blessing and the curse of this business is you kind of blend into the background.
Correct.
It goes perfectly, you never hear about it.
You're supposed to be.
You don't go perfectly, it's all you hear about.
Right.
So to kind of be able to walk around at such a prestigious event like that in Brookline, that was to me, and I mean, and when I say we were doing 300,000, people in a day in some situations across, kind of what's occurring, it was such like a, wow, this idea that started with a music festival in New Orleans and as a way to just manage a credential better has now turned into, literally being able to have a front row, stage view of everything that's happening.
Right.
That was probably one of the most special kind of just moments when I think about like all the cool events that we've done and all of the things that we've been at. It feels, again, it's almost selfish to say because we get to do so many of them, but I'll never forget that one.
No, and that's a huge moment. I mean, yeah, I can imagine because all those ideas start in small rooms or in your head without talking to anybody, and all of a sudden you look at something that's handling one of the biggest events of the year,
Totally.
ever, and everything's working seamlessly, and honestly, you other than the technology not working, there really isn't a whole lot of fails that can happen with your setup.
Yeah, but that's big enough.
Yeah, but
I don't need more risk.
No, but the thing is like I mean, we used to have an RV on site to count the cash.
Sure.
Right? And the cash comes every hour, and then you have to have security outside to count the cash. And then sometimes the cash bag doesn't show up to the RV trailer. And like, and that's just one aspect of what an event would have to deal with without the wristband situation. Without the wristband situation, you're dealing with a ticketing system that's separate from everything else that you're doing with people on the ground that may or may not be able to handle the ticketing, and then those tickets have nothing to do with the sales inside, so like there's separate systems for all of that wristband just basically like wipes out.
Yeah. I mean, that was always the goal.
Right.
And not to say the goal, to be clear, was to quote, wipe anything or anyone out.
Well,
but
I didn't want to say that. I mean, wipe out the risk of all that stuff going bad.
Correct. That's correct. We would get involved with some events where we're working now. I mean, I think about, Boston Marathon and some big music festivals, a bunch of EDM festivals that we do where we're providing everything from, the box office to the scanning at the entrances to the point of sale at the bars. And those were always these either interconnected, crazy dependencies that one goes wrong and then the other has an effect and everybody's pointing at each other and he said, she said, right? Or they just don't have anything talking between those anyway. And that's an even worse experience.
Correct.
So that really was the kind of belief from the very beginning was like, how do you think about what is the technology that's used when everybody shows up and go downstream from there?
Right.
And so that's actually why we're integrated with ticketing companies. So we were purchased, we sold a majority stake in Wristband about 18 months ago, a little more than that, coming up on 2 years to Axis. And Axis is behind Ticketmaster, the second largest ticketing company in the country, if not the world.
Yeah.
They're owned by AEG, who is, owns Stagecoach, Coachella, Houston Rodeo. They run with Jazz Fest, Hyde Park in London, you kind of name it, not to mention all the concerts in the arenas and all the non-festival work.
Right.
But, well, I say that because when they came to the table and when a lot of clients come to the table and they kind of go, we all are a ticketing company, right? And it's like, no, actually not.
No.
We're actually, we like ticketing companies. We want to be partners with them because they have their own role. They got to, like to your point about going back in London theater days.
Right.
And it's like, someone's got to sell the ticket. They got to deal with all that ahead of time. They got to collect the money and blah, blah, blah. But we really focused and said, then what happens when those people arrive? Because it's a very different need.
Absolutely.
You have to be very connected with that ticketing system for that reason.
Absolutely.
And so that's where, that connection really comes into play. But to your point, why do you now want to have that many more things that can go wrong once that person has arrived?
Right.
So we've really found that mix is kind of the sweet spot for us. And, of our 160 clients that we service today, 150 of them fall into that category where there's some ticketing or registration kind of primary platform where things are like, where that's being handled initially. But whenever any of those fans show up and whenever they're doing anything when they're actually at the event, that's where, we really get that opportunity.
Yeah, the data collection is where the bulk of the money is.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Even moving past that event, the data collection is what helps you do your next event. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's where you take that data collection and you go get bigger sponsors.
Yep.
You go get specific sponsors because now I can identify genres and age ranges and racial demographics and like
whatever you want to collect.
I can pinpoint down to very, very narrow advertising gaps.
Correct.
And that is where the money is all in the advertising.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was brilliant. It was brilliant what you guys did. So
yeah, thank you. And and I think that's an interesting piece just to kind of note on. I get asked a lot. You scan tickets and they go green or red. People have been doing that for years. What are you really doing that's different? Like, it's not that revolutionary. And I don't disagree with that. Like, that is accurate. Like, I would be lying if I sat here and was like, no, we invented green or red. Like, right. Clearly not.
Right.
But what people often miss is
even if you go to Mexico, you hit a button, it goes green or
that's
red.
the scariest button.
Whether you go into immigration or not, right?
Have you seen that Kevin Hart segment and when he talks about how scary it is to push that button? You got to watch it.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's true, though, because it's like, oh, gosh,
I don't know what's going on, but I heard if you hold it too long, you go,
something, the trap's going to fall out the door.
Yeah.
But to the point that I go, green, red, yes, operationally, that's what people think of. That's what you're used to. Does that make the security guard's life easier who's standing there at the door to kind of say, yeah, David can or can't come in here, Conway can or cannot? Absolutely. But is that in 2026 why we're doing that? No. What we're doing it is all of that data that generates, that is hundreds of thousands of data points of who's going where and what they're doing and when and how long. And are they getting here at 9 a.m.? Are they getting here at 11 a.m.?
Right.
So yes, it checks a huge box operationally. But if you were to go ask my clients right now, and when we think a lot about like, not even what's next for wristband, but just like what does 2026 even right now kind of look like? Like what is our goal? What is our focus? Like what is even going to be done differently this year that we didn't do last year? Even if, functionally or operationally, we're doing the same thing.
What can I collect?
It's the data.
What data can I collect?
And what I learned this past couple of years, it's like, at first it was collecting the data. Oh, okay, yeah, we just got to collect it. Great. Then it was like, all right, you give the data to the client. We'd send them these crazy spreadsheets that had 1 million rows in it, and we'd pat ourselves on the back and go, you've got more data than you could ever dream of. Well, we learned this past year that we genuinely were giving them more data than they could ever dream of. And the odds of them opening that and doing something with it were so slim to none anyway, that now it's like, how do we take that data, package the insights for you and go, hey, these were your peak times, this is your big time. Next year, you should be looking at, upping your staff here,
Right.
lowering your staff there.
Right.
I have some clients that have told me that because of our data, they've been able to sell the following year 10% more tickets because they've learned where their true peak numbers
Market-based,
were.
right.
I've had clients tell me they've been able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars because they didn't realize nobody was even going into the, viewing deck on 9
Right.
until
Right.
11 a.m. So what were they spending money on bartenders and hot plates for 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. if nobody was in there anyway?
Correct.
And so, again, when people think about it and they go, it's shiny, the shiny bell, the shiny whistle. And it is pretty. Like we've built a really pretty device that's, I would say, prettier than just kind of going green or red, but
Right.
it's still not why. It's
Correct.
still, what is that device, because again, that could be your facial scan or whatever. What is that generating that's actually the piece that matters?
Right.
And it's 110% the data.
100%.
Right?
Well, and so where do you feel like it's going? Because, I feel like 20 years ago, we were talking about geofencing and people walking by certain stages and get a text message of the song on their, for sale or the next concert or whatever it may be. And that was a little invasive, but it was part of where everything was going. Where do you see the next data collection?
Yeah, there's maybe that's one way to answer or to ask the question. I'll answer it a little bit differently if that's okay, though.
Yeah, of course.
Which is when I really think about and go like, what is going to continue? Like, what's going to continue to change or be different or new? Or what is the North Star that...
Because it become a Minority Report where we're
Right.
going to walk past the screen and I'm going to be on the screen.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know,
that's like, there's always that level of it. But to me, what I still see is like what's changing. Because the truth is that most of that data isn't for, if we're being honest, typically for the good of the customer.
No, it's always the good of the of the product.
It's marketed as that because it's like, oh, we're gonna give you more targeted this and that, and yeah, that's true. I don't disagree with that. But
it's the same way as social media listening to us.
Right.
The algorithm is not helping us; it's helping sell us.
Yes, but what I really believe, and like this is true to my core, I was like, what still makes me really excited about waking up at Wristband, 7 or 8 years in, wherever we're at, is I believe that the customer still wants more control over their experience. And I believe that the customer's journey through, whether it's a sporting event or a concert or a conference or whatever, I think that it's going to continue to become a lot more like an airline has become in the last 10 years. There's very few two people going through an airport anymore that have the same journey, the same itinerary, the same cost even, because they're upgrading and they're adding on at different times. You bought your ticket 6 months ago. I bought mine yesterday because that's who I am. Right. You have more disposable income now that you go, hey, I didn't want to be VIP then, but I'm willing to spend it now. Or I don't even want to spend money to be VIP for this entire event, but I'll spend it to be in the pit for my favorite act, right? Because I don't have $1,000 to drop for the whole weekend, but I'll spend $100 to be front row for that hour.
Right.
And if we can unlock that experience as a company, that kind of goes back to the point of like, it goes green or red, because if it went red and you went into your device and you tapped a button, tap, tap, now it's green.
Right.
Alternatively, you would have gone outside, gone back to the box office, explained to them, they would have cut your wristband off or done something and, refunded you, then charged you for a
Punch
new
you in
ticket.
the face.
Yeah. And by that point as a customer, you just like, you know what? I don't actually care.
Right.
Like,
No, 100%.
I'm just going to stay with my friends because they're already in the rest of this area, or I'll catch up with you guys later. I'm going to be over here. So I really believe that the more we allow that customer to have that autonomy over their experience and that autonomy over control, I mean, it's a win-win situation still, because frankly, that's more lift in revenue that these events are getting. There's amazing things that sponsors can actually genuinely start to do with that data to go, hey, we know because of your playlist, on Spotify, that this is your favorite act. So congratulations, surprise and delight. We just dropped in that free pit pass to your ticket or to your pass.
Right. Or here's a meet and greet you just won.
Yeah. I mean, same way with, Delta or United, when, you're number one on the list, you got upgraded, or we dropped to 5,000 free points in your account or whatever. Everything shows that that's still what the customer wants.
Right.
And nothing shows that the current incumbents have gotten there. Like, even with the big companies on the ticketing side or whatever, you can't tell me many events you've been to where you felt like, wow, that was just like, I wanted it and then I had it.
Right.
So it's still, I think, one of the last frontiers, because hotels have figured this out a long time ago. You can, upgrade your room. You get those prompts. They're always upselling you. Airlines have figured it out.
Yep.
Even car rental companies have, for what it's worth, in their own right, figured it out. I still believe that this entertainment market is this like almost this one of these last frontiers that just has so much potential, where whether it's because of limitations just in the product and the platforms that exist or whatever the case may be, I haven't seen that many good solutions that really seem like the ones that are going to be like, oh yeah, that's the one that's going to be here for a while.
Well, because the customer's always right still.
Oh yeah.
Right? They're always right still.
Off the record, sure.
Yes,
but yeah.
But they're always right
true.
in how they want to spend their money.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
And you just have to listen to that.
Right,
I mean,
correct. Yeah. Why am I going to navigate them through a hallway that whether I don't know they're going to buy it or not?
Yeah. And look, it's like, I mean, whether you want to talk about VR or 8K TVs or 4K or any of the buzzwords that kind of come around, there's no doubt that the quality of what you can sit at home and watch is only getting better and better.
Right.
So if that experience of you being there in person doesn't also have some type of differentiator, what are you spending $200 for to show up and be in the very back row of a huge field anyway, if you're just like, now I just feel like I've been duped. I would have rather sat home at this point.
Well, especially now with, like, you sit in an Dolby Atmos room. Like now with Atmos, I mean, you start recording shows in Atmos and making every person watching it on TV feel like they're dead center at the concert, because you can mix it that way now.
Yeah.
It's
even you can tell just with how damn good the spatial tracking on the AirPods has gotten since the first version came out, where sometimes I'll have them in, I'll hear something and I'll, whoa, like, that was weirdly accurate of where that just like somehow came from. I can't even like touch or point.
Right.
And so I think that's just going to continue. So I think, that demand to make sure that the in-person experience and, like the differentiating factor of the in-person experience, I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Well, I hope not, because as we learned through COVID,
me neither.
we need human connection.
Yeah. I mean, look, if we like want to talk about some of the, it's always like the silver linings of things that you don't realize for a long time. The demand that came back in 2022 for our business, because people were just so desperate to get back out there, and they were willing to try something different.
Right.
Events were willing to finally force the digital contactless approach.
Correct.
Finally going, you know what? I know it's been like this for 30 years and that's what you're used to, but if you want to still have this event, like this is how it's going to be. That sometimes those types of changes are impossible unless there's some crazy catalyst.
Absolutely.
And that really shifted the needle that, we're never going to go back in the other direction.
Correct.
I mean, yes, even when if another pandemic or something of that level kind of occurs, as a society, we're going to have to probably go back into some different ways. But I think that it taught us, especially in this day and age, just so much of like where human nature really was wanting to be and thinking, and that period is still
100%.
We're still seeing the outcome of it today
and we will
in
for the next
26.
10 years. I mean, think about Katrina.
It took 20 years before you stopped thinking about it in New Orleans.
New Orleans still isn't the same.
No, but you finally stopped thinking about it every day.
I agree. But there are things that it taught us.
So much.
And one of the things, my grandfather being in the hotel spot, and you'll understand this because, with your family dynamics, but when Katrina came through, obviously there were some hotels that were downtown that you couldn't use, but a lot of the hotels that we owned, you could use most of the hotel. It was fine as far as damage goes, as when the water receded. So it was time to start back up and start moving. Well, then you had all the construction companies coming in town and using the hotels for rebuilding, but you couldn't get workers in. So what it taught us is we really could run the hotels on about 30% of the staff that we were actually running the hotels on. And we got so good at it that by the time everything reopened back up and things were better, we never went back to full staff.
Yeah, that adjusting baseline is always a really weird concept in any type of like staffing changes or numbers where you have that feeling where you're like, wait a second, half the people aren't here. We're doing the same amount.
Right.
Yeah, somebody's probably paying the price in that group. Somebody's probably getting more burnt out, but it really does just force you to think through all of those pieces and kind of look at all of those things and kind of just go, are we continually pushing ourselves to make sure that we're staying kind of on that edge and not?
Well, it forces you to evolve.
Exactly.
Yeah, evolve or die. Right?
Exactly. And that's exactly, to your point about Katrina. I mean, that was a big piece for New Orleans with that, and I think as you'll probably appreciate, I don't know how many of your listeners are from New Orleans versus not, but for so many people that went through the pandemic, I mean, to be clear, pandemic was totally surreal, right? But for the New Orleans people, we were like, no, this kind of feels like going through Katrina.
Right.
It was the most similar, surreal
100%
thing. It was just the difference that you couldn't go to Baton Rouge and 99% of the world was fine and we weren't.
Right.
But that just like throw your life off and throw the kind of just like wrench into plans. Like I can't think of a better, and I hope not to really learn many more examples of that in my life of just like, what a weird dichotomy of time to live through
100%.
And that and that refractory period of like how long does it take for that is not what you're still thinking about in some way, shape, or form, or seeing the effects of, unfortunately better or worse sometimes. But Katrina was no different in my mind. I mean, than that.
It forced a change, forced you to think different, and it forced you to use different tools.
Yeah.
And COVID did
exactly the same thing. That's that's exactly the comparison I've thought a lot about. I mean, terrible both terrible situations that I would never want to go through by any means, or anybody to ever go through again. But what a learning lesson in both of those ways, because the parallels and the similarities, yet the differences were, so present even for both of our businesses, frankly.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Well, if there isn't an event you guys are doing already, is there an event you guys are wanting?
There's part of me is like you put the wrong things out into the universe and it'll kind of jinx you on that. But we've had a lot of success with Formula One in the last year and a half.
Yep.
We are the provider for Las Vegas, which is just talk about an amazing team and taking over something as public as the Vegas Strip at 6 p.m. and having it ready for Formula One cars by midnight,
right? And
giving it back and doing that 3 days in a row. I mean, there's just an appreciation to the complexity of things there that you can't really manage.
Absolutely.
So we have Vegas. We also have Melbourne. We're doing Formula One in Melbourne for the first time next month. Our team's already down there now. They've been down there for a couple weeks getting ready. I think I want to see more of those come our way. It's a really great fit for what we do. It fits that market of these really transient events where
multi-day,
multi-event, popping up in the, not in the middle of nowhere. It's not like a camping festival, but like turning the Strip into a racetrack. Might as well be.
Don't realize we had one in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, look how bad they never came back because of the potholes.
I wonder why.
They said that's what they said.
That's what they said.
Yeah, straight up. They were like, we're never driving these streets again.
We couldn't even fix the potholes for
correct.
Formula One race.
That's correct.
God,
but I do think that I love those types of events. There's special tennis tournaments out there that I hope we get an opportunity to get involved with someday. But, I already feel so grateful being on majority of the PGA tournaments. We do all the international games with the NFL. So we were in 7 countries with them this year. Plus we do draft, plus Super Bowl. So any of those events we're a part of, which feels really great.
So you got a big weekend coming up.
I kind of keep forgetting that. And look, hey, the beauty is I'm genuinely here, and my brain is here with you. My mind is here with you right now.
Right.
I probably should be a little more worried about a few things right now. But my team, our team, to be credited, the quality of the product, the kind of support they put into place, the reliability of it, I can genuinely feel like I can sit here and not feel like I'm going to look at my phone when I get out of here and just be dealing with chaos.
Right.
I've got a meeting to get to, but that was a pre-scheduled meeting.
Right.
Because I needed to, had to anyway. But, it's not unusual these days that big weekends, we have 7, 8, 9, 10 events that are concurrently running. There was one weekend we were looking at we have air tags in our stuff that go everywhere because, something gets stuck on the road. We want to know where on the road it is.
100%.
And one of the guy who runs that little iPad for us sent us this cool screenshot, and it was like air tag in Melbourne. We had Europe, we had Brazil, we had New York, we had California, we had Phoenix. And I was like, here I am in uptown, hanging out in Lakeview at my parents' house. But it's a good feeling, and I think it's really special and it's cool, especially knowing that 3/4 of our team are people born and raised in New Orleans. For New Orleans people to be able to kind of say, even though we're not a 500-person company, but that we have a part in these events that are happening all over the world. This is not an LA or a New York company or whatever. Obviously now we're part of AEG to some extent. So we've got all these amazing resources to continue to grow internationally. I think we'll keep seeing us more and more in other markets. But, the fact that we're able to do it and run it from here is really a testament to kind of our team, and also a testament, frankly, to New Orleans, and allowing us to have that flexibility and kind of do that. So
absolutely, well, that's awesome, man. I'm proud of you, and
Thank you.
I'm proud it came from New Orleans.
Thanks.
And didn't even realize recently, proud it came from friends.
Yeah.
But I think it's something New Orleans should take the stage on, is live entertainment. And if we do it best, in my opinion. So if we could spread that wealth around the world, I feel like it would be a better place anyway.
Yeah, I think we started here for a reason, right? And people, ironically, we don't do as much work here as I think we thought we would.
Right.
There's a lot of, smaller festivals here that don't necessarily need what we do. They do just fine without us. But I do think that it's symbolic, being born and raised in a city that's known for live entertainment, coming from a background that in a different way was always in live entertainment, in the movie theater business.
Right.
There's something there that is definitely special, and I think it makes sense. But, New Orleans, had New Orleans not raised us all in the way that it did, who's to say that we'd be sitting here, or if WRSTBand would even be, kind of around today, or if it'd still just be part of something else or somebody else. But I am very proud of that part of it. And New Orleans has been a huge part of that.
I could tell you, Dad's probably pretty proud too.
Yeah, he is.
This is an extension.
He wouldn't say it on record, but he'll tell you next time.
He'll curse a lot on record, but he won't say
That's exactly correct.
Yeah. But I could see him being very proud of you, because this is part of the space he built for you guys.
Yeah, it was, and on that note, I'll just say that on kind of closing, which was that our parents and families have always been the most supportive.
Right.
And even in having their own businesses, and as much as he, always wanted me to really kind of be involved and run his business, it was like, you boys always do what you think is best for you. St. Michael, middle brother, built your house. So real estate, oldest brother is how I got into this, still does some of the largest live event production in the country, staging, lighting, rigging, sound, building museum sets and environments. And then, I obviously got my start because of him, but this niche we've now ended up with, totally unrelated to the lighting and sound, but just what is actually happening behind the scenes, I think is a testament that our family did give us so much encouragement to still find and just go, hey, if you're happy and it's something you enjoy doing, find a way to make it work.
100%. Well,
that's what we've been doing.
You evolved because the movie theater business isn't the same anymore.
No.
So you guys evolved into what the future of, really that experience is, which is live events.
Yeah. Totally agree with you on that. So it's been fun.
That's awesome, man. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, great to have you today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there anything you want to share? I mean, you're part of the Super Bowl this weekend. I mean, is there anything you want to share that you guys are doing, or socials or anything like that?
We ironically had lunch today with the first social media and marketing manager that we hired full time.
Okay.
So I'll give him a subtle shout out to.
So you mean you can be successful without socials? All right, I like it. You heard it here.
Hey, we could have a whole podcast about. We were lucky with referrals and inbound and people seeing us and knowing who we were.
Right.
That was how we got as successful as we did. But we love telling our story. Socials is a great place to just be able. We have such a great story to tell. We're such cool events. I mean, this weekend alone, like you said, we have Waste Management Phoenix Open, which is the largest golf tournament in the country. We have Super Bowl going on, and then we literally have team members driving from San Francisco to LA for NBA All-Star Game.
Wow!
So back to back to back, and I hate to say that's like a regular weekend, because it's not a regular weekend, but
pretty close. It's
kind of getting to the spot where, we want to be able to do those day in, day out. And that's kind of the goal of where we're looking.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I look forward
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Wristband. Absolutely. And thank you guys for joining us today on the Elation Podcast. And if you'd like to see more, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.
Peace.